Good evening, everyone. This is the Dartmouth Conservation Commission. This is our public meeting for Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. We're conducting this meeting remotely as a result of Governor Healy's signing into law on March 29, 2023, a further extension of the hybrid remote meeting option for municipalities. That legislation extended the option until March 31, 2025. We do have public access to this meeting, so there's a raise your hand feature, and if you somehow wave your hand in front of your camera and want to be heard, you will be recognized and unmuted. There is a quorum of commissioners this evening, and this meeting was duly posted at Town Hall and noted on our website. So that was all done in compliance with state and town law. We're moving now to our administrative matters. And the first is the approval of the minutes of September 24, 2024. May I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Second item is the approval of the field trip reports of October 8, 2024. May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. The final administrative item is to receive the minutes of October 8, 2024. May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We're moving on to our field trip reports, and the first is a request for determination of applicability, RDA 24-31, from Margaret and Richard Sapia to construct an in-ground pool and patio in a buffer zone to an inland bank. The applicable regulations 310 CMR 10.02, 10.54, and Article 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 25, lot 6. It's otherwise known as 165 Rockadundy Road. Mark, what is staff's recommendation on this request?
Yes, this is an in-ground pool proposal with patio within the buffer zone to an bordering vegetated wetland. It's also within existing lawn area, and as such, staff is recommending a -3 determination with a standard with our standard erosion control device condition.
Does any commissioner have any questions of staff? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to issue a -3 determination with our standard erosion control conditions.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Our second field trip report is a request for determination of applicability, RDA 2432. It's from the Buzzards Bay Coalition for minor vegetation clearance to accommodate water and sewer markouts and geotechnical borings on DNRT's Dodge Reserve in riverfront area and the 100-foot buffer zone to an inland bank and bordering vegetated wetlands. The applicable regulations 310 CMR 10.02, 10.54, 10.55, as well as Article 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 132, lot 51. It's off of Russell's Mills Road. Mark, staff's recommendation on this request.
Yes, this is minor vegetation clearance, very close to Russell's Mills Road on the Dodge Reserve. And it is for siting of geotechnical borings in some survey locations within the buffer zone to the inland bank riverfront area. And staff is recommending a -3 on this with standard erosion control conditions.
Does any commissioner have any questions? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to issue a -3 determination with the standard erosion control conditions.
So moved.
second,
You have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
yes,
Megan,
yes,
Nat,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Our final field trip report for this evening is a request for a certificate of compliance, DEP file 15-2661, RCC 24-36, for a proposed single-family home to include a garage, apartment, driveway, and storm water system within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The applicable regulations, 310 CMR 10.02, 10.55, as well as Article 2 of the bylaws, Town of Dartmouth. The land is described as map 165, lot 25. It's otherwise known as 63 Brant Avenue. And I believe, Mark, you did circulate earlier.
Yes, I did. I circulated an email to the commissioners. I've reviewed this project, the file, extensively and conducted a recent site visit. The filing was for a proposed residential development that included a house with a garage and an above the garage apartment, site preparation and stormwater drainage. An order of conditions was issued for that project, and that work was to be conducted within a buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The only work to date that has occurred has been the site preparation, putting up fencing and clearing some vegetation in buffer zone. The site development and stormwater portions of the work were abandoned for now due to a zoning issue, and that zoning issue was that the use was not allowable in the zone. Prior to that zoning ruling, the site preparation had been conducted at the applicant's risk, and we're now being asked to issue a certificate of compliance to close out the file with work that has been done in the regulated buffer zone, regulated under the Act, and more stringently regulated under the local bylaw, for work that never happened. So we're being asked to certify impacts to an area that is subject to jurisdiction and regulation. I don't think that is a reasonable request. There is an open order of conditions, and staff recommends that prior to closing this file, that the applicant consider issuing an amended order of conditions requesting an allowable project under zoning to move forward on the prepared site, or secondarily, if they choose not to do that, to issue us a restoration plan for plantings to restore the buffer zone to the pre-existing condition. If they choose not to meet with item 1 above. So my recommendation is not to close not to issue the certificate of compliance. I sent that email to the applicant's representative, a person in Attorney Brian Glover's office, and his engineer, Matthew Pike, indicating that my recommendation would be not to issue a certificate of compliance. Not long after sending that email to them and copying it to the commission, I received a call from the applicant, and we have scheduled a site visit for Thursday at 11 o'clock to discuss what would be required for restoration planting. So at this juncture, my recommendation to the commission is to not issue a certificate of compliance, in that we have really unreasonable impacts on site for no particular purpose.
Any questions from any commissioner? I don't see any. So I'll entertain a motion to deny the request for a certificate of compliance with DEP file 15-2661.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
yes,
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Now, Mark, I did read the red print. Then when I looked at these cases, they all had file numbers.
Well, I sent you an email today that we had received. Actually, I think I sent it yesterday, that we had received file numbers for everything.
Okay. I'm happy with that. So we're moving on now to our public hearings. And the first, it's tabled public hearing, DEP file 15-2755, ANRA 24-1. It's from Michael Labossiere to approve a wetland delineation under an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, or ANRAD, on land described as map 38, lot 16. It's otherwise known as 32 Pembroke Drive. Entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
second,
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
yes,
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Is there somebody here this evening on this?
Yes, there is, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Boucher, and I am here this evening on behalf of my client, Michael Labossiere, who owns the property at 32 Pembroke Drive. It's approximately, it's a little under 27-acre parcel, and we had previously delineated a significant portion of the property so that the owner, Mr. Labossiere, would have a good idea of where the areas of land subject to the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction are located near his house. And we did that. We had the wetland delineated, and my understanding is that Jenna Silva, your former agent, had visited the site, and I believe in her report said that the wetland delineation as we depicted on the plan that was submitted was accurate. We requested a continuance from the last public hearing because, and it was my fault for overlooking proper notification of the abutters. So we did do that. We've received the green cards or the mailing, the certified mail receipts for that. So we are requesting that the commission vote to issue the order of resource area delineation per our plan showing the BVW, the flag BVW that border that intermittent stream to the north.
Thank you, Mark. Mark Garrett, staff's comments on this request.
Yeah, Mark Boucher is absolutely accurate. The delineation was inspected by Jenna Silva several weeks back, and she approved the line as accurate as per the plan dated August 4th of 2022. Therefore, my recommendation is to issue an order approving the delineation for the NRAD.
Thank you. Does any commissioner have any questions? I'll now open it up to anyone in the audience that wants to speak on this request. I don't see any commissioner having any questions. I don't see anyone in the audience that wants to speak on this. So I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
second,
With seconded motion on the floor, roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
yes,
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. I'll now entertain a motion to issue approval of the delineation wetlands delineation as shown on a plan dated August 4, 2022.
So
Wow.
moved.
second,
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz?
yes,
Megan?
yes,
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
The second public hearing is a public hearing on DEP File 15-2753, NOI 24-43. It's an after-the-fact notice of intent from Thiago Alves, who shall restore 1,940 square feet of unauthorized wetland impacts to a bordering vegetated wetland, and then request to put an addition onto an existing shed and to add a 2,000 square foot landscape parking area driveway within the 100-foot buffer zone to the bordering vegetated wetland. The regulations which are impacted are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.55, as well as Article 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaw. The land is described as map 65, lot 11. It's otherwise known as 1031 Old Fall River Road. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So
so
moved.
moved,
second,
second,
Seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz?
yes,
Megan?
yes,
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. And is there someone here this evening on behalf of the applicants?
I see no one, Mr. Chairman.
Well, okay, that is a bit of a problem.
Well, if I could speak, I don't mean to complicate this matter. This is a response to an enforcement order. And this has been delayed for many, many weeks. And frankly, to continue it because they're not here, I mean, I understand why the commission might do that, but this is just prolonging the inevitable. We have gotten excuse after excuse after excuse on this. We finally got a filing. Everything was all set. And as far as I was concerned, everybody understood that the hearing was tonight. And here we are, and neither the applicant nor his representative is here. I would ask that the commission consider that we go forward without them if there's any way that we possibly can. Because I'm frankly getting tired of babysitting these enforcement orders for meeting after meeting after meeting, hearing excuse after excuse after excuse.
I certainly can appreciate everything you've just said. My biggest concern is we've had a policy, I wouldn't say it's required, but we've had a policy of not going forward without representation by the applicant or the applicant, particularly where we might impose conditions. I think we would have a procedural due process defect. That's my problem. And given the fact that this is coming to us as a result of an enforcement, or I would imagine if there's anything in what we do that the applicant finds distasteful, there'll be an appeal, which will probably be taken seriously given the fact that we proceeded without the applicant or the applicant's representative present. So I understand why you get frustrated on this, and I understand this isn't the first time that the applicant hasn't done what they said they would do or hasn't been attentive to this important matter. But I'm not sure that would give, in my view, I'm not sure that gives an excuse for us deviating from the longstanding procedure this commission has had. But I'll leave it up to any of the other commissioners to chime in. I'm not the only one that would have to vote on that. So does any other commissioner have any Anything they'd like to say on that issue?
Are we
It
able
is-
to postpone it?
Well, we could, and normally that's what we would do, Liz. But, to be fair, Mark's points are well taken. I mean, this is an after the fact. I don't know that, I can't remember an after the fact that's come before us where we haven't had an applicant or their representative present. Most of the time when it's been happening, it's been as a result of a traditional filing. And normally there's some give and take on this, especially the issue of conditions.
I'm trying to
So-
remember.
Always continued it.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I was trying to remember. Has this public hearing been on the agenda before? I know there's been a lot of work in the background to get it to the agenda, but I'm just trying to recall if this is the first time it's been on the agenda. Because if so, I'm more inclined to issue or grant a continuance.
This is the first time, but this was supposed to be filed back in August of this year.
Hmm.
So I understand first time on an agenda, consideration being given. This is now 2 months of delay to get to the point where we're even discussing this matter. And we're going to continue it another 3 weeks. And I will tell you that the next agenda is going to be jam-packed with big projects as it looks right now. I don't want to be the bad cop here, although that is my role, and I accept that. But I'm frankly tired of talking to these people. I really am. The only other thing I would say to you, I'm not supporting a continuance. However, we are now at October 22nd. The growing season, in theory, ended on October 15th, but we know that over the past 5 to 10 years, growing seasons have extended into early November. We would not be hearing this until the 12th, and the growing season would be over at that point. And I would not, and I was going to recommend that the plantings be put in by April 30th of 2025. So they really can't do much work until the early spring, which I guess gives certain credence to continuing, because at the end of the day, it really doesn't change the response scheduling that I would be recommending and seeking. Of course, they could take the risk and plant, on Christmas Eve for all I know, but they would be responsible for success. So I say that understanding that a continuance could be made to allow, and that continuance wouldn't change matters a whole lot on the ground. However, this has been an applicant who has made excuse after excuse, apologized for everything. Nothing's ever his fault. He didn't know, the typical story we get. And this has been going on, actually. This was discovered back in May, for crying out loud. We're 6 months out, and we have a plan and we can't discuss it.
And Mark, there was no notice that you received from the applicant or their consultant that they wouldn't make it tonight, I assume,
Nope.
correct?
Nope.
I'm a little surprised that Rick Sharon, I know he's
Excuse
usually
me.
very good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
hi, this is Carmelo Nicolosi, with Rick Sharon's office.
yeah.
We lost power here at my house, so I was, unfortunately, I was
Oh,
off.
perfect. So you're representing the applicant.
Yeah, I'm just coming in on this. I was on earlier, but, like I said, I just got back online.
Yeah, I did see your name there. Well, that's good. We batted around the issue of what to do now long enough, so you're actually here. So that becomes a moot point. So now that the applicant's representative is here, you've got the floor.
Okay, Rick was unable to attend tonight's meeting. I understand that there's a natural heritage endangered species filing that we haven't received a letter yet. I believe that Rick submitted a request for a continuance. And I missed the beginning part of Mark's what Mark was talking about, so I'm kind of at a loss here.
Well, no, what he talked about was he wanted us to consider going forward and making a vote on this request, despite the fact that neither the applicant nor the applicant's representative were present. And the reasons being that this is an after the fact notification, that the applicant's violation was discovered back in May, that the applicant has been dilatory in efforts to correct the problem, and this was just going to extend the problem out even further. So while we were discussing that, you came on, which solved the problem. So we didn't get into the substance of what staff recommends.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just jump in, Carmelo, I have not received a request for continuance. I will say that I left the office at 3:15 today because I had a site visit that I had to do a wetland assessment on, so I have not been back to the office. If there was a continuance made, I did not receive that, or I haven't seen it.
Okay.
So I'm not gonna say he didn't do it, but I didn't see it.
Yeah. One of the other items that when I was reviewing the file, I noticed that the plan of record that you have may have some layers that are not shown. For instance, a proposed driveway at the beginning of where the barn is. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, I know the request, there is a request for a landscape driveway.
Right, but on the plan of record that was submitted through the portal, when I reviewed the PDF this afternoon, I noticed that there was a couple of things that were missing on the plan. For instance, there's a fire pit that was included, some arborvitae, and a little bit more detail that I can't seem to find on this plan of record. So I'm just curious if perhaps a couple of the layers were inadvertently turned off before they were submitted. Perhaps I can share what I have on.
I'm looking at my plans that I don't see those either.
Yeah, and then one of the things that should be on that plan is the stone wall is not actually on the property line. The stone wall falls within the applicant's property. It doesn't represent the actual property line. And I think that plan that you have shows the stone wall along the property line. So what I'd like to do is continue the meeting, make sure that the plan of record is the appropriate plan, and perhaps have a conversation with Mark and discuss the restoration plan that was presented by Corey Brackens.
Well, let me, since we're all here this evening, Mark, where'd you go?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. I didn't see your face. That's why. I'm thinking out loud here, but Mark, if you had a chance to review the restoration plan, as long as Carmelo's here, what are your comments on the restoration plan? Because if you have adjustments.
I actually have no problem with the restoration plan. I went out and I looked at the site, and I approve the Sebacia plan, and I approve where it's depicted on the plan of record. The only things that I think might be problematic to the applicant is this isn't after the fact notice of intent. He's asking to do a lot of site improvements. And as far as I'm concerned, given the violations, I was going to add 3 conditions, which I'll throw out there now for the record, and I'll throw them out again, because I'm going to be pretty steadfast on this, that one additional condition would be that the restoration area shall be regraded and soils augmented so that they both are consistent with the down gradient wetland condition. Second one is, as the growing season is waning, planting and regrading shall take place during the early spring, and I set a deadline of April 30th, 2025. And the last one is, no new construction shall occur until the site restoration program has been installed to the approval of the conservation staff. And when I say the wetland restoration program has been installed, that's in accordance with the September 25th, 2024 Sebacia proposal.
Okay. Camillo, did you hear those conditions that Mark was articulating?
Yes, I did.
Carmelo, if you could send me an email contact, I will send this to you so you have it in writing. So you're not scratching it, trying to scratch it out word for word.
Sure. It's do you want it now, or do you want me to just
No, just get it, send it to me at my office. And, Rick has my email address. I see Rick is on, but he's muted.
Yeah, you may not want to give your
you guys
email
can get in
address out on
contact with me.
television, but that's,
It is public, Mike.
well, that's true.
okay.
So, with all of that being said, is November 12th enough time for you to get into this commission the revised plans that'll accurately reflect what's on the ground and what's being proposed, knowing that they have to be in before the meeting? So that's going to be what, by 3 o'clock on the Wednesday before the meeting? Mark would tell you exactly.
3
that.
o'clock on the Thursday before
Thursday
the meeting,
before the
so I
meeting.
believe that's November 7th.
7th, yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Okay. Is there any commissioner that has any questions?
I guess I would just add, given the context that Mark had added before, I think our expectation is that everything's in order by November 12th. There's not meaningful appetite to continue this again, given the length of time that's taken place between when this was identified and today. That's my only other comment.
Yep. And, it would be helpful to Carmelo. Mark's going to send you the conditions that he verbalized tonight. I would also appreciate by the 12th, something in writing from applicant or your office indicating agreement with those conditions.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be debating those at the meeting. If we can avoid it. Anyone in the audience that's here this evening on this application that wants to be heard tonight? I don't see anybody. So at this point, given what we've heard and given the representations by Mr. Nicolosi, I think it's appropriate that we entertain a motion to continue this public hearing until November 12, 2024 at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second,
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Liz,
yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Carmelo. I appreciate the fact you jumped on and saved us from this terrific philosophical debate about due process. Our next public hearing is public hearing on DEP file 15-2754. That's NOI 2442. It's on the notice of intent from Dartmouth Natural Resources Trust to replace a deteriorating wooden footbridge with a new wooden structure, including additional approach ramps at each end and the installation of 240 feet of boardwalk on an existing trail within a bordering vegetated wetland, and the applicable regulations are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.55, Article 2, the Town of Dartmouth bylaws, and the land is described as map 20, lot 55. It's on Smith Farm Reserve at 0 Smith Neck Road. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz?
Yes.
Megan?
yes,
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. And I see Linda is here. Is there anyone else that you're going to present by yourself tonight?
I am.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Linda Vanderveer. I'm the land manager for DNRT, who is the applicant here. As previously described, we are seeking to install 240 boardwalk on our Smith Farm Reserve on an existing trail and replace a very dilapidated wooden footbridge that is currently 12 feet long with a longer structure that's 16 feet long and has 3 feet of ramps on either side to allow for safe access. If I could share my screen, I have some maps and plans that I think will illustrate our proposed project.
Absolutely. Please do.
Okay, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, okay, DCTV, could you allow Ms. Vanderveer to be able to screen share, please?
I don't think they're on.
I don't see them.
Yikes. All right, I don't know if I have that capacity. Let me see what I can do.
I just attempted to share, and I don't have the access either.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me see what mine says. Yeah, mine's disabled too. So then it says the host disabled. So that means I'm not the host. I'm just trying to be helpful, but I don't know what to tell you. Maybe why don't we proceed without it being shared? Mark did share. He does share all of the applications and submittals to us by email.
Okay, great. Well, we are, if you could see my screen right now, I have a beautiful map of Smith Farm Reserve. The trail that we are proposing to put the infrastructure on goes around a man-made horseshoe pond. It's entirely located in bordering vegetated wetland when the trail was put in many years ago. Sort of a wet place for one, but that is where it is. And so we are proposing to do 2 sections of boardwalks, one at either sort of foot of the horseshoe, if you will. One is 100 feet and the other one is 140 feet. The proposed bridge goes over sort of an intermittent stream that is connected to the pond. And again, it's what is there is 12 feet and it's on these existing wooden supports that are within the stream. We're proposing to pull out those supports and place supports that are out of the stream on the bank. There'll be 6x6 pressure treated posts that would rest on standard 16-inch concrete blocks. The ramps would also rest on these concrete blocks. So very small amount of impact to bank with the bridge supports. And then there's bordering land subject to flooding is where the bridge is. And then the rest of the project is in the bordering vegetated wetland. I'd be happy to describe the makeup of the bridge or the boardwalks if you'd like in more detail. Those things are usually better illustrated with plans, but
I'll leave it to any commissioner. I don't think I need it personally for this discussion. Does any commissioner want that described?
I'm comfortable with the plans that were shared.
Okay. No, thank you for offering though. Is that the presentation?
that is the presentation. That is the sum of it.
Okay, Mark, staff's recommendations on this request, please.
Yes, let me assist Linda a little bit, since, I've sent you the plans. That first plan, 1 of 4, shows the site layout. It's, Linda, that's your site location map, which shows the 3 project elements. The 100 and 140 foot boardwalks are, as Linda said, within bordering vegetated wetland, and right now, in part, are well-worn paths that have been there for years. So what these boardwalks will do is will raise the foot traffic off the actual ground surface of the BVW. The bridge replacement, and I believe Linda was extremely kind when she said very dilapidated. I would not walk across that bridge given my girth because I would be in the water. So this is a bridge that certainly requires public safety, or I should say, is required for further public safety for public access to this, this public land. Sheet 2 of 4 is Alan's proposed footbridge plan, which I think shows very clearly the schematics and the specifics of the supports and the stringers and the layout of the bridge over the brook. Sheets 3 of 4 and 4 of 4 show various elements of typical boardwalk work that DNRT does on all of their sites. It's pretty consistent. We show typical section plan view. We show change in direction plan view. We show sections of the footings. So having said all that, I think that pretty much completely describes what DNRT's intentions are. And again, in this age of environmental awareness, the public is getting out to these sites, and these sites have to address public safety while also providing the appropriate access to enjoy these reserves for the reasons that they have been protected and open to the public. Having said all that, my recommendation to the commission is a standard order of conditions as per the site location plan dated August 1st of 2024, and the proposed footbridge and boardwalk plans dated September 20th, 2024. And that is my recommendation.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any questions, either of Linda or Mark? I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience this evening that wants to be heard on this application? Once again, I don't see anyone. So I will entertain a motion from the commission to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Have a second on that, please.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, excuse me, on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. I'll entertain the issuance of a standard order of condition on the site plan dated August 1, 2024, and the bridge and footpath plan dated September 20, 2024.
So
So
moved.
moved.
You have a second on that? You have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
And my vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. You did a good job without your sharing screen.
I had all these great maps ready. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night. Okay, our fourth public hearing is on DEP file 15-2756, NOI 2445. It's an after-the-fact notice of intent from Lori Levesque to construct an addition onto a single-family house within the 100-foot buffer zone to an inland bank on Lake Nokichoke. The applicable regulations are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.54, and Article 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 171, lot 29. It's otherwise known as 35 Lakewood Road. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading at this point.
So moved.
Have a second. We have a second on the motion. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. And on behalf of the applicant, it must be Terry.
That would that would be me, Terry McGovern from Zenith Land Surveyors, representing Ms. Levesque and her builder and her partner. Mark and I had a long conversation about this project about 10 days ago as we were making the filing, because I did want to check with him and try to get some additional background. Essentially, this was the result of a building permit that was issued. And while the issuance of a permit itself basically doesn't relieve the obligation to make sure that all of the other necessary permits are obtained, it's something that now would likely be avoided with the use of the portal, because all of the agencies involved, everybody in town hall gets to see something as soon as it's filed. In the meantime, there were 2 additions proposed to this single family structure on the lake. One in the rear consisting of a screen porch and a small enclosed area, which is now framed in and enclosed and all the foundation support in place. And one in the front facing the street, which consists of an enclosed area and then a covered porch. And that sits as an open excavation out in front, and all of the work taking place within the 100-foot buffer zone. The applicant was instructed, or the builder was instructed, to put an erosion control barrier up. I went out, looked at it, took some pictures of it, also walked the site. It is in place. I think he had to make some repairs to it, and it is in place and functioning. Where this coming forward as a typical notice of intent, there might not be a lot of thought to it. And in listening to Mark, it did occur to me when he was talking about growing season, it occurs to me that, yeah, in fact, we're reaching the end of it. We have some piles of material out front. We have an open excavation that thankfully has been kept fairly dry because we haven't had any precipitation in October. And it would be good to get the material out of the way, get at least the foundation in, and get it backfilled so that the area in the back can be loamed and seeded, hopefully before growing season ends and we start to get some heavy rains come through. And so now I'm almost kind of looking at this in terms of site stabilization as being primary more than anything. I'm going to note for the record that Paul Duart made some technical comments, mostly about the existing utilities, but what he is asking of us to do, and there were recharge beds just outside the buffer zone in the front that were designed by the previous engineer and shown on their plan, which Paul noted was never approved. So he has asked us to go back in, once the site stabilized, to go back in and do a small test pit in each of those areas to make sure that those recharge areas are at least 2 feet above groundwater due to the proximity of the pond. They're outside, it's outside of the buffer zone, but I'm not gonna play that game. I'd rather tell somebody, hey, we're gonna be disturbing a portion of this site. After it's stabilized, we're gonna go in and we're gonna put a couple of small mini excavator holes so that we can get about an 8 or a 10-foot deep hole just to validate the elevation of groundwater out front as requested by DPW. So that would be the only other new disturbance taking place on the site. And that was based on Paul's comments. Again, it's there, and based on the fact that that permit was issued, Mark can certainly chime in on it. He and I had a long conversation about how this happened, but I think now the important thing is to get the site stabilized before we get any really heavy inclement weather. Had we come in as a normal filing ahead of time, there probably wouldn't be a lot of question about it. And with that, I'll leave it open to Mark to add to it, because he and I did have a conversation about it.
Thank you, Terry. Mark, with that segue, can you please give us?
Sure. I want to chime in on that last comment that Terry made, because I think he's absolutely accurate. If this had come in as a normal filing, it would have been a walkthrough. This was, the project on the ground is not problematic. The way it came out, and this is some fault to the applicant and their agents, but they received very bad guidance from the building department. Back in October, and I may have discussed this in a previous case, back in October, I put a hold on this building permit, indicating that at minimum a request for determination should be applied for, because I didn't even think the work elevated itself to a notice of intent filing. I thought that this could be handled with a determination. There's a backstory to this. Building permits have to be issued within 30 days of the application being deemed complete. And we're having a battle with our building department, and not just us, DPW had the same battle on this very case, because the the building department, without my knowledge or without my concurrence, took my hold off. And I believe, I think Dana Pickup, who's listening in, and he can indicate further, but they basically were told that you are all set to go. And that's coming from a town agency. And that answer was actually wrong. They were okay to go for building department, but they were not okay to go for Conservation Commission, nor were they okay to go for DPW, because they had a hold that was pulled. So they went ahead and started doing the work thinking that they were in compliance. And in fact, they were not. And DPW were the ones who actually discovered the issue and contacted me, and I went out and verified their concerns, but also our concerns. And it presented a dilemma, and we have been meeting and having discussions on this, as to if a department is doing a review through the Viewpoint permitting portal and puts something on hold or makes a comment to the sponsoring department, in this case, the building department, and it's being reviewed by every other department in town hall, the building department, in my mind, has an obligation to inform the applicant that you're okay with us, but you have other issues that you have to address. Look at the comments, because when I review something, unless it's a clear-cut no-brainer, I put a comment in, whether I'm approving it by saying there are no further conservation issues on this matter, or the citing of this proposal is within conservation jurisdiction, therefore certain authorizations or permits, AKA RDA, NOI, whatever it may be, are required for filing prior to any project activity. I'm very explicit about this, and I was explicit in this case, and it didn't register. So I placed a cease and desist on it, and I believe Paul also placed a cease and desist on it. And this became an after the fact notice of intent that really should never have been. I mean, none of them should be, but this one was just a case where there was some bad guidance. So that's the backstory to this. The front story is, I'm going to make it very simple. I'm recommending the issuance of a standard order of conditions as per the Zenith Landscaping Plan dated October 8th, 2024, with one statement added in the conditions to comply with all DPW requests, as Terry has indicated they are going to do, and move this forward so that we can take the cease and desist off and they can get back to work.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any questions? Is there anyone this evening in the audience that wants to be heard on this request? Again, I don't see one. So I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to issue a standard order of conditions in accordance with the plan dated October 8, 2024, with the condition that the applicant comply with all DPW requests.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Terry. Good presentation.
Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, Mark, for your help with this.
No problem.
Moving now, that concludes the public hearings. We're now moving to the items for discussion. No, I don't see any bills, but we do have some items to discuss and an enforcement issue. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mark.
Okay, real quickly, I think I sent copies of the support letter out for the Buttonwood Brook funding support.
Yes.
That check has been cut and I believe was mailed either yesterday or today. So that is on its way. So we're off to the races on that. The second discussion item is office status. As of last week, we made an offer to an individual, Eduardo Fortes, to replace Jenna. Eduardo has accepted the offer. We'll be starting on November 4th, which is 2 weeks from, no, is it 2 weeks? Yeah, 2 weeks from yesterday. Yesterday. And he will be in the office on Friday midday to meet with me, just to go over some basic stuff, you know, what he needs to be prepared for. I'll give him some reading material, you know, so he can do some upfront reading. Second matter is we also interviewed last week an in-house candidate. There is an interim proposal by the interim town administrators to have a floating administrative person. In this case, it's an in-house person who applied for the position, in which they would split their time between the collector's office, that would be the tax collector's office, and conservation and any other offices or departments that might need some help. While anything is better than nothing, I was very adamant that this is not a permanent solution, but could alleviate some pressures moving forward and bridging us to the new employment study that the select board is proposing for the spring. I again tell them that you don't need to do a study from our department. Our department needs 3 people, a full-time dedicated administrator, a conservation officer, and a director. But be that as it may, half a loaf is better than no loaf. So that's where we stand. In terms of this floater, I'm not quite sure how quickly she can come on board. Even though she's in-house, she's going to be vacating a position from the Water and Sewer Department. So she's going to have to train a replacement for that. She is learning stuff in the collector's office. Her background is primarily I'll say money related. She was a bank teller. She's worked in finance. She's worked with in dispute resolution, and she has, she interacts with the public. So while not science-based in any way, shape, or form, and I asked her the direct question, so tell me what you know about conservation, and please be aware that I don't think you know a whole lot about conservation, but that's okay. And she admitted that she didn't, but that's a trainable skill for the level of work that I think we're going to require her to provide us at this point. So that's where we pretty much stand. Things will get somewhat better, but still, and a little bit better than they were, but still not to the point that they have to be. So, I just figured I'd let you know that. So this is all going to happen, probably before the Christmas holidays, and so I got a lot of training to do along with everything else I do, but again, something's better than nothing. So that's where we stand on the office. I don't know if anybody has any comment on that. That was mostly an FYI, just to bring you up to speed.
Yep.
Under enforcement, 54R Slade Street. I don't know if that rings a bell to you. That was an enforcement order that was issued earlier, during the late summer. This is the site where there is 28,640 square feet of wetland impact. This is to the west of Cross Street, between State Road and Old Westport Road. A wetland area that was completely filled, paper streets that were built on for the purposes of a milling operation. We issued an enforcement order requiring a response by Friday, October 18th, which was last Friday. We have failed to get a response. I had a conversation with the land surveyor representing the violator, and was told that the violator, who has been in Portugal since this last Sunday, he returned, indicated that not to do anything. So this is an individual who I have never had any personal interaction with, but people have told me he's well known, and he's an individual who has attempted to take advantage of the law where he can. I, for one, think that 0.6 acres of wetland impact is not something that a conservation commission, nor frankly Mass DEP, should be very casual about. This is an egregious impact by a single family homeowner. And the use was a milling operation. I'm not quite sure what was done out there. Does this become another 679 Chase Road? Does this become another Bliss Corner? Does this become another 1363 North Hicksville Road, where ESAs have to be done, environmental site assessments, for potential hazardous waste contamination or solid waste contamination? This is a major issue, and just to refresh memories or enlighten those who were not on the commission when this all first started, there are tax issues. There are no records of any of these buildings. This individual has gone for 20 years not paying taxes in this town. So, I mean, there are multiple heads to this problem. Many of which, and there are zoning issues too, many of which are not in our jurisdiction, and I don't try to make them in our jurisdiction. But we have, in my opinion, we have to move forward on doing something with this. And I would recommend to the commission that they allow me to secure town council services to go after this individual and also make it known to Mass DEP of what's going on. I have copied them in the past in a very casual form because I think it's an appropriate FYI for them. But at this point, I think that, you know, guns really need to be trained on this individual because this is, in my opinion, one of the largest wetland impacts by a single family homeowner that I've ever seen.
Well,
When was it, if I may, when was it discovered that there was milling going on, just out of curiosity?
Liz, I can't give you the exact date. I can tell you it was back in the spring. It was again May, June.
Yeah. Okay.
And this site, just so you know, this site is tucked away in a place that nobody goes by. You have to go to it. And we found this because there was an A&R review, an approval not required review for an abutting property who happens to be owned by a family owner of the violator here. And we all went in and we did our due diligence and we pulled up, you know, aerial photographs and we were going, wait a minute, this is all supposed to be wetlands. And then we did historic wetland review and we found that a lot of wetlands were impacted. We did a file review. We found a filing for the house, which is the front lot, in which a wetland line was delineated and was approved as a line of record. A certificate of compliance was issued based on that line, which was very much upgrading of where the existing wetland line is. And it is that distance from one wetland line to the other across the width of the properties and the paper streets. And in fact, some impact on an abutting lot that constitute the 28,640 square feet. And again, for the record, that number was generated by the land surveyor retained by the violator. That's not a number that I came up with. So he is in concurrence with us in terms of, you know, what transpired out there. And as a sidebar, some of you will recall we had a discussion several weeks ago about me notifying the realtor to make sure, because the site went up for sale and has been listed. And so, you know, we were discussing whether the enforcement order should be recorded. We decided not to record the enforcement order, but to alert the realtor. I did do that. The listing broker and the CEO of the company, Lamacchia Realty. And what I have found out and what the land surveyor have found out is that while they may be mentioning the fact that there's a minor problem with wetlands out there to potential buyers, nobody's talking about more than a half acre. And that's based on calls that we have received about the property, not about the enforcement order, but about the property in general. I had a potential buyer in yesterday who knew absolutely nothing about what I was talking about. So this has the appearances of being a huge enforcement problem. And the longer we let it roll out, you know, and I'll use the previous case that we discussed tonight, you know, the Alves case on Old Fall River Road, this is kind of what I'm getting afraid of, because I'm dealing with this more and more and more. Where these enforcement orders get protracted out. And for Alves, it's 1,900 square feet plus or minus. This is 28,640. This is more than a half an acre. And to treat this casually, to me, is going to be disastrous.
Well, I think you've made a compelling argument for town council. And I think from our standpoint, I'd certainly entertain a motion to authorize the engagement of town council on this matter. And to, once we have town council involved, to then go forward with what the appropriate actions, which may well be to file in Superior Court and then get a permission from the court to file basically a notice of that litigation in the Registry of Deeds, so that now it's going to impact the title.
Can they, Mike, can they, the legal term escapes me, but basically tie up the land?
I'm not sure they can get a lien on the property.
No, I don't mean a lien, but like an injunction or something, is that?
Well, I think if he noted that the property is for sale, I don't know that the court's going to enjoin the sale of the property, but I think the court would entertain and grant a request to be able to file at the registry notice of the litigation against the property. So therefore, any purchaser would be a purchaser with knowledge of the problem,
Mhm.
because they inherit the problem.
Well, yeah.
And so I think you've done your best with Lamakia. It's very discouraging that they wouldn't tell prospective buyers. It tells me I'd be very leery of using an outfit that doesn't relay important information to people. Because as I said,
Well,
when this
I'm
came
only
up-
telling you what's reported to us.
well, I understand, but you have one prospective buyer who said the brokers didn't tell them. They learned about it when they came to see you. If that's true, it's very discouraging. Okay.
Right.
Because as I said, when this first came up, once you've alerted the brokers, they now have knowledge. And if an innocent bona fide purchaser buys the property without them disclosing, which they have a duty to disclose, they will be subject to triple damages, legal fees, and a whole bunch of other costs, including possibly forfeiture of their brokerage licenses, because I'm sure that disgruntled buyer will bring an action in the state administrative agency governing their licenses, in addition to the civil litigation. It would be an utter calamity for any real estate agent to ignore that. They may be a former real estate agent and may have a lawsuit bigger than they have money to pay.
Yeah, again, I'm reporting what
Just saying, because
I-
if it costs $150,000 to remediate the problem, and this person had to engage an attorney for another 150, and the damages are triple, plus the legal fees, plus everything else, they're going to be fast approaching $750,000 or more. And that goes through, and then lose your license on top of it. Not a pretty picture. But if that's the risk you run by, is it worth it for that commission? I don't think it would be. I wouldn't do it. And that's what the rules are. So they have an obligation, Mark. The fact that you've already alerted them, it should have been a big red flag. It should have been put on. I would have even said to the seller, I've got to put this in the listing. At the very least, I've got to have it so that when a person calls about it, I got to tell them one of the first things. And if I were
just for the record, I have not looked at the listing recently. I looked at it once way back when, before I contacted them, contacted Lamakia. And again, what I'm reporting to you is what I've been told.
understood.
On two
Listen, I
occasions.
get it. I'm just saying,
So it's
if that's
hearsay.
true,
So I'm
If
not
that's
accusing
true-
them specifically, but this is what
No.
I've been led to believe. And I will say that the land surveyor representing Mr. Tavares got a similar story from the individual that I spoke to yesterday, because he spoke to him also.
Well, all I can tell you is, if it's true, and I'm not saying it is, if it's true, it's a dangerous game for the real estate agents to play. It's a very dangerous game because their potential losses would be economically devastating and quite professionally, they'd be obliterated. Okay. They would have no license anymore. They couldn't sell real estate anymore. That's a hell of a penalty to pay to try to make a quick commission. And I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But once you've alerted them, they can no longer feign ignorance of the fact. And they have an affirmative duty to disclose. It's not a matter of, well, if you ask me, I'll tell you. No. It's an affirmative duty to disclose. So I'd be very troubled when a prospective buyer comes in and says, I was never told this. Now, maybe that person didn't remember. I kind of doubt it. Maybe they're not telling the truth. I don't know. I'm not trying to ascribe this as a fact, but I can't believe a real estate agent would, a competent real estate agent would ignore that and not disclose it. And frankly, I'd want it acknowledged with initials that I told him in writing, because I know this will come back to bite me if I don't. Because because some people, oh yeah, it's okay, I'll take care of it. Then they see how much it's going to cost to take care of it, and now they're looking for someone else's pockets to pay for it. I want to be able to pull that piece of paper out and said, here's what I gave them. They initialed it right there, saying that I gave it to them. So you don't look to me. I mean, go find someone else, but it ain't me. So I'd have a real hard time as the real estate agent ignoring what you said and not having that disclosed. But everyone's got their own way of doing business, but that's a dangerous way.
Not that it matters to Mark's question, but I am looking at the listing and I don't see anything
I was
disclosed regarding
just
this.
going to say the same thing. I don't see anything on there.
Well, I said that's where it should be. But at the very least, it should be one of the first things that's given to a prospective buyer. Maybe they don't want to put it in the listing because obviously you're not going to get anyone to come take a look at it. But, that's like going to the car dealership and saying, they tell you this car is brand new, never been used, and it turns out, it fell off the carrier truck when they were delivering it to the dealership. It's been damaged. They have an affirmative duty to disclose that to you. Hey, what can I tell you? Massachusetts is a consumer-oriented state. So Chapter 93A is the biggest club in the arsenal of a consumer who's been wronged. And it's a big club. Triple damages, legal fees, costs, and expenses. You got to really be very sure that you're right before you try that route.
Well, I'm just
By the
asking
way,
for authorization to proceed to town council.
I'll entertain a motion to authorize the engagement of town council on this matter.
So moved.
Second,
Seconded motion, roll call vote. Liz,
yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
my vote is yes. Mark, there you have it.
That's all I got.
Me too. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
my vote is yes. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good weekend.